The threads of Agha Shahid Ali's poetry spin from Kashmir in northern India to America. A border province, Kashmir has for decades been the source of tension between Pakistan and India. But the tensions in Agha Shahid Ali's poetry weave through contrasts between India and America, high and low art, life and death. He's published 6 collections of poetry, been a long-time teacher at American universities, and received a Guggenheim grant. Agha Shahid Ali recalls perfectly how his poetry began growing up in a household of teachers in which poetry was recited in English, Urdu, Persian, and Hindi.
I was reciting poems as a kid, and then Daddy would know poems that he would hear me recite around me, and I'd been writing these poems, and I'd written a poem which was a better poem, I would say, that it seemed like a poem. It's not a great poem, but came closer. After that, I wrote a lot of horrible poems, horrible poems. But Daddy gave me a chance to buy me a beautiful book, beautiful leather-bound book, and he said, this is the place to keep your poems. So I started writing, I don't know how many poems. I wrote horrible poems. But that first poem was not a bad poem. It happened to be a poem about Jesus.
A Muslim, Shahid, as he's called by the family, was educated in Catholic schools in Srinagar by Irish priests. Agha Shahid Ali was born in 1949. This spring, he received the news that he has terminal brain cancer. His short-term memory is a mercurial flame now, but his brother and sister are in constant attendance and remind him of forgotten lines. A prize family photograph shows 10-year-old Shahid in an embrace with Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru. Shahid and his brother Iqbal tell the story of the encounter with India's first Prime Minister.
He was inviting us to his house, and I didn't expect all this. And I remember the day he invited us, I was so sleepy in the morning. I had to go in the morning. I said, I don't want to go now. And Daddy wasn't there, but my mother and my brother and my sister. Sisters? Yes, sister.
What had happened was in that winter, we used to go from Kashmir to Delhi and spend most of the winter in Delhi. And what happened was we were going by the Prime Minister's residence, and Shahid asked my father, who lives there? And my father said, well, Chacha Nehru, because that was the term that we grew up with for Prime Minister Nehru. Chacha meaning your uncle. So Shahid said, I'm going to write him a letter. And that was the end of that. And a few days later, the Prime Minister's car with the tricolour fluttering comes in, and the messenger on a salver presents this note, an envelope for Shahid.
They went and visited. The photograph shows the Prime Minister and the boy in each other's arms. The visit presaged a brilliant career. One of Shahid's signature poems is called Dhaka Gauzes, referring both to the capital of Bangladesh and the weaving industry in India, which the British commandeered during colonialism. The Dhaka gauzes are also a metaphor for a lost world, where silks were so finely woven they could be pulled through a wedding ring. As he can no longer read because of his illness, Shahid recites the poem from memory.
Those transparent Dhaka gauzes, known as woven air, running water, evening dew, a dead art now, dead over 100 years. No one now knows, my grandmother says, what it was to wear or touch that cloth. She wore it once, an heirloom sari from her mother's dowry, proved genuine when it was pulled, all 6 yards, through a ring. Years later when it tore, many handkerchiefs embroidered with gold thread paisleys were distributed among the nieces and daughters-in-law, those two now lost. In history we learned the hands of weavers were amputated, the looms of Bengal silenced, and the cotton shipped raw by the British to England. History of little use to her, my grandmother just says how the muslins of today seem so coarse, and that only in autumn, should one wake up at dawn to pray, can one feel that same texture again. One morning, she says, the air was dew-starched. She pulled it absently through her ring.
When he was a boy, Shahid started submitting poetry to journals. He sent so many poems to one publisher, he finally got a personalized rejection letter.
Please don't send us any more poems. They're far below our standard. This guy wrote, I sent these poems. I used to write a poem like, I don't know, 6 poems a minute or whatever. I don't know what I was doing. It was such trashy stuff. And I was just writing and writing and writing till they wrote me a letter saying, please don't send us any more poems. They're far below our standard. And I never felt hurt by any of this. I just said, aha, there are new standards. There's this. I would always hear these words and say, oh, so that's what I have to pay attention to. And you hear it again and again. And I've noticed people who write poetry or write other things, they become defensive immediately. And I don't think they should. They should just listen immediately. And then things start happening. So I'm very grateful to the criticisms I've heard.
America has really been your home now for the last 25 years or so.
Actually, I am an American, I am, what do you call it? I have the
U.S. citizen.
Yes, I truly and I feel very happy about it. And I'm glad I did it when I did it, because at that point I felt absolutely fine calling myself an American.
What do you like about America?
People have been very generous to me as a poet. They've been very kind. I've been able to be free and dancing and, just cooking well. And people have been very kind to me. I just must say they've been great to me.
The Yellow Pages was an inspiration for you, I guess.
Which poem did
The
you
American Yellow Pages.
Yes, definitely.
Let's
what I like about these poems is how 2-3 different kinds of things have been going on simultaneously in my poetry. So somebody looking at them will say, I can't imagine you wrote those sort of poems about Kashmir, let's say, or Delhi, and then you wrote these sort of poems which seem totally different. But somehow I think temperamentally there are things that I like about them. There is this humor and has to be, I think, important part of one's life, should be, or at least for me it has been.
Several poems in A Walk Through the Yellow Pages play off of Bell telephone ads. Here are a few lines from Talk is Cheap, Call Somebody. I called information desk, heaven, and asked, when is doomsday? I was put on hold. In another collection, A Nostalgic Map of America, Shahid writes, when on Route 80 in Ohio, I came across an exit to Calcutta. The temptation to write a poem led me past my exit, so I could say, India always exists off the turnpikes of America. So I could say I did take the exit and cross Howrah, and even mention the Ganges as it continued its sobbing under the bridge. Throughout his career, Shahid has been a master practitioner of the ghazal, an ancient form of couplets made famous by the Persian poet Hafiz in the 14th century. It's spelled Ghazal.
Ghazal is, there are various pronunciations I've learned. When I came to the United States, I heard people saying ghazals and that kind of stuff. But then I started saying, no, it's ghazal because that's how they said it in Urdu in India.
The first 2-line couplet of a ghazal rhymes, and the rhyme continues at the end of the second line of each succeeding couplet. Last year, Shahid edited a book of ghazals by American poets and wrote, each autonomous couplet can be plucked like a stone on a necklace and shine in vivid isolation. His brother Iqbal reads a ghazal by Shahid.
This ghazal has the refrain, tonight. Where are you now? Who lies beneath your spell tonight? Before you agonize him in farewell tonight. Pale hands that once loved me beside the Shalimar, whom else from rapture's road will you expel tonight? Those fabrics of Kashmir to make me beautiful, trinket to gem, me to adorn, how tell tonight? I beg for haven, prisons, let open your gates. A refuge from belief seeks a cell tonight. In the heart's veined temple, all statues have been smashed. No priest in saffrons left to toll its knell tonight.
Very nice, very nice.
He's freed some fire from ice in pity for heaven. He's left open for God the doors of hell tonight. And I, Shahid, only am escaped to tell thee, God sobs in my arms, call me Ishmael tonight.
That is really a brilliant ghazal.
Oh, thank you.
You always put your own name at the end of...
I have done
ghazal?
it, but I think now I've been resisting it in some. But it's generally an accepted thing that you would, in your last poem, quote your line in one way. But it's not like a autobiographical thing. I mean, even if your name is there, you won't say it's referring to your life in that sense, because you're referring to the poem and the things it opens up for the reader.
Is it like a painter painting his or her signature somewhere into the painting?
Exactly, absolutely, yeah.
Even before the onset of his illness, Agha Shahid Ali had for the first time been collaborating with an Israeli painter, Izhar Patkin. The two men decided on the veil as a symbol of their Muslim and Jewish backgrounds. Shahid received the news of his brain cancer on a Thursday in February. The next day he wrote for Patkin a rare, complicated form of poetry pioneered by Dante called a canzone. The canzone is called the Veil Suite and looks upon death frankly. "Make me now your veil," it says, "then see if you can veil yourself from me." But these days are neither dark nor veiled. They're often spent resting in a colorful home filled with pillows and carpets from India and surrounded by family and friends. You received a diagnosis